So
Just look
Mason,
at that.
so Mason, how was the Seitz Memorial on Saturday for you? I mean, your seat definitely got a lot of airtime.
Right. Welcome back, everyone, to episode number 28 of season 2. We're back from another busy week of invitational racing, and we still have more to come. And we have a full field once again with myself, Mason, along with Becca, and we have a double Collinsworth today for you, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jessup Pelkey and Mr. John Breckle joining us. Good to see you all are mostly healthy. I've heard there's been some shenanigans that people have been kind of taking some tumbles. Can we just keep ourselves like in one piece for the rest of the year?
Much like the race season, Mason, it's always rough going at the end. But only the brave and the incredibly stubborn survive.
Well, this is
I would agree, though, Mason.
And that is the definition to be a Pelkey. Incredibly stubborn. And Becca is stubborn.
She is. But I mean, I think it's the blonde hair that gives her more the stubbornness than anything else.
Yes.
Well, let's try to keep ourselves in one piece for the rest of the season. Unlike some of the racing, we don't need to have a whole bunch more carnage on or off the track. But quick shout out to our presenting sponsor, Hitch Harness, and Tyler Hall out of Fertile, Minnesota, who got a win at the Corn Cob Nationals. So congratulations, bud, on the win there. Go over to hitchharness.com and check out all the products and inventory that they have. Their main product is the receiver hitch storage hitch harness. Go onto the website, pick out the style and color of your choosing. Check out all the amenities for the racers, including chassis dollies and pull bar brackets. Thank you so much, Tyler, for supporting us on the podcast this season, as Jessup has maybe another info tidbit on one of Hitch Harness's products, potentially.
Mason, did you know that a pull bar bracket is more than a pull bar bracket? It's a bracket for pull bars, and it looks good.
I'm sure it does. I'm sure it helps the racers out a bunch.
Yes. That is factual, Mason. It does help the racers a bunch and saves them a bunch of time.
Yes. So head over to hitcharness.com. Check it out for yourself. Thanks again, Tyler. The lineup is slightly shifted, pretty much the same as last week, except the back row just kind of switched places. So John, Jessup, Becca, and myself bringing up the rear. It's kind of been the standard for the last couple of weeks, and I kind of like being in the back. It's nice to be in the bottom right-hand corner, and people forget about the people coming from the back. Anyway, so as we have Oli now joining us to have a very full field, we expanded the lineup a little bit. So, Mr. John Breckle, how are you doing this week?
Oh, I'm doing really good, Mason. So we got to attend a couple of races together this weekend. So we had a lot of fun during those events. And it's a busy upcoming week. Invitational season is always busy. So I've got a couple of busy days ahead at work, which getting everything done before I venture out to the Whistle 100 this upcoming weekend. So it'll be a good time. And I know the two of us will be attending races here for the next 4 days.
Yeah, busy week coming up. Mr. Jessup, how are you and Oli doing?
Well, Oli's thinking about taking it pit side, but he might come back out onto the podcast. We're not really sure. I think he's coming right back, though. But overall, we're doing pretty good, all things considered. No real complaints. I mean, I could complain, but who's going to listen? There's already enough people out there complaining, so we got to not complain too much.
I say it's been seems like there's been a lot of complaining over the last weekend or two, and we're just winding the season down. Let's enjoy the last few races. That's the way I look at it.
Agreed. They're getting together for the last couple of races,
Why
and
why would we do that, Mason? Why can't we just play 20 questions with tracks and be demanding and bossy, and then when you get your answer, you sit there and instantly cry about it?
Yeah, that's a very good point. But yeah, let's enjoy the last few races this season, because who knows what the weather's going to do as it gets later and later into the fall. Miss Becca,
Well,
how are
Mason,
you doing?
usually it gets colder. That's usually a given.
Well,
and typically the sun goes down faster.
Yes. And sometimes there's frost or snow.
well,
These
can't
are
argue
all
with those
facts.
facts.
Yeah.
These are Becca fun facts.
No, those are just a fun facts, but whatever. I'm doing just fine, Mason. I completely agree. Just gonna enjoy the last few weeks of what is racing season. There's only a few races here left in the state of North Dakota, as well as the upper Midwest. So definitely encourage everyone to get out and hit up a racetrack and support these big races coming up. Because I think, as Jessica has probably mentioned, if not on this podcast, but maybe the CNC, which is on Mason's Patreon page, these big races are meant as money shows for these racetracks to make sure that they can get through these off season, because just because we're not racing at the tracks doesn't mean these tracks aren't paying bills in one way or another. So these big year-end specials that these racetracks are hosting, they're important. So go out and support them, whether that's in the pits, in the grandstands, or watching on their broadcast. Go out, support these tracks so that these tracks can make those extra money to get through the off season, maybe make some improvements, whether that's to the facility or to their equipment, and then come back strong next year. So just super excited to take in these last few weeks of racing.
Yeah, I think that's one of our very first CNC episodes that we kind of discussed that, and it gave me a new perspective, because I haven't really worked closely like on a racetrack board, or kind of seen like obviously financial workings and how like there's stuff that happens during the off season that helps to keep the lights on and get things open for the next season. So a lot of hidden stuff that the normal fan wouldn't see at all.
Think of it this way, Mason. I mean, I'll give the real shorthand note, spark note type. Do they even make spark notes anymore? That's like how a lot of us got through college.
I don't even know if they do anymore because everything's so electronic that it's probably computer based.
Right.
Okay. Well, let's put it this way. The shorthand version of this is basically, throughout the year, racetracks incur a lot of expenses, including payouts, bills, water bills, equipment bills, and it often drains the accounts. And what most people and most drivers really, they say they understand, but they truly don't understand, is that, like, going into the end of the season, it's very easy for tracks to find themselves in the red. And for non-financial literate individuals out there, which could be anyone, it's okay. The red is not a positive. You're down money. You want to be in the black, where it's even or you're up on money. And a lot of these year-end invitationals, and it's changing more so now because a lot of drivers have spoken out against the more traditional year-end invitational, is that it's 2 days and just one show. And drivers don't like this because they want a race and they want more money, which is a given. I don't blame them. The problem with that is, if we only focus on the wants of the drivers, then the track eventually ends up losing their butt, and they go even further into the red, going into the off season. And the problem with that is, you need to have money to pay your bills, whether it be rent or your lease or equipment repair or storage fees, or even going into the new year before the season even starts, you have to pay to get all the stuff running again. So the goal is to be in the black. And that's where I believe it was Terry Volts of Wasota came up with the two 2-day, one show. And they tried to make it more of a party atmosphere rather than just so heavily focused on racing. Racing's still the number one priority. And the problem is, again, like we said earlier, drivers want to race more. And they don't always take into account that the year-end invitational is to make money for the track. And the real goal of it really is to, one, financially put the track in a secure position. Two, give the drivers one really good weekend of racing, at one last good weekend of racing. And three, it's to actually, be for the fans, have a really good party atmosphere. And I always add the fourth one. It's a chance for all of us to say goodbye and have one more good time with our racing family. I mean, we see people that I'm not going to see the rest of the year or winter. A great one is I love seeing the Brennans from way out west. And that's usually the last time I get to see them for the year. And if I don't have that, then we don't get to say bye. And it's kind of a weird and tough time to not see them. So that's the main purpose on these invitational races. That's why they're traditionally built up to be 2 days, one show. And that's why drivers don't like the 2 days, one show type of deal. And there will always be butting of heads on that theory. But I think the 2-day, one show allows for a greater bit of tradition to be built up over time versus race. Because at the end of the day, nobody's going to remember if there's too many races in one weekend. If it's three or four complete shows in one weekend, no one's going to remember in 3 years unless you actually won it.
Or unless you get a history lesson from John on the podcast.
Well, John is our expert and our professor on history. So that's the short.
I'm definitely a numbers guy. That would be why.
That is very well said. So yeah, encourage you fans, like we've said multiple times, go out and support these year-end races. So you don't know how long they're going to be around. You don't know what the weather's going to do. So get out to the racetrack while you still can, so we don't sit cooped up in our igloos for 7 or 8 months.
Yep.
But other than that, I'm doing good. I can echo a lot of you guys, just trying to enjoy the last few weekends of racing. I got a couple of nights in, 2.5, and I had other obligations throughout the weekend. And so now I'm all geared up for the home run stretch for the season. And so with that, we will drop the green flag officially on episode number 28 and get into who or what are we repping. We will start with Mr. Jessup. Who or what are you repping?
Well, I've already talked a lot. So we're continuing on in the field of irrelevance, the string of irrelevance. And today I am wearing a racetrack shirt, and I'm keeping it short because this is NASCAR's shortest hometown track type of deal. And it is the Lake County Speedway in Painesville, Ohio. And it is a 5th-mile track.
Oh, okay.
About the size of the track at the Dome.
All righty.
Interesting.
Yep. Only other information I got on it, because we're keeping it short, it also runs figure 8 races, and that's about it.
Awesome. I'm sure that would be a fun track to go watch racing. It's one of my least favorite sized tracks to play on the World of Outlaws game.
Well, to each their
This
own.
is true. We've seen Mason struggle.
I'm terrible at the big half-mile tracks, so
Wow.
I will take those little ones and use the method of 8 wheels that are better to turn than 4.
Definitely also seen that as visual evidence. Miss Becca, who or what are you repping?
This week, I am repping one of our podcast sponsors, Isaac Hot Sauce Sandrel. This is his new shirt that he came out with this year. Isaac's had a pretty decent year. He's busy with farming, but he still finds time to make it out to the track. He's gone out to the track 23 times. He's got 7 top 5s and 16 top 10s. His best finish is a second this year over at the McLean County Speedway back on June 30th. So pretty decent year this year for Isaac, and hope to see Isaac at those year-end specials if he can get out of the field. Hopefully, fingers crossed. But I want to thank Isaac for sponsoring our podcast for most of this season too, and would love to see him come back next year. And thank you for your continued support, and thank you for watching, and thanks for all the excitement that you put on the racetrack.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Isaac. And those are pretty cool shirts. I will admit that. I will go next, repping Tyler Hall, because he got a win at the Corn Cup Nationals. Was pretty fast on night 2, and unfortunately, had a little bit of a skirmish towards the end that resulted in a DNF, but he had a pretty good weekend overall. For the shirt, kind of taking a little bit of dive back into history, just a tad, but throwing it back to the first edition of the Wissota 100 at I-94 Speedway in 2018. So this is one of the shirts they have. I don't think there's anything on the back. Nope, just on the sleeves and on the front. So a little brief history lesson question for the Pelkey, because I'm sure John will know this one right away.
The answer is B, Mason.
Who won the late models at the Wissota 100?
Which year?
2017? 2018.
Well, Jimmy Mars won it last year, so that's 20.
Was that the year Don Shaw won everything? He won the Seitz and went on to win. No, shoot.
No.
No, but did this John? You might have to drop my memory. Did this driver win a lot of those year-end races this year?
Oh yes. Oh, very much so. Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought, because he went on a tear.
And I will give you guys a hint. This driver wasn't planning on running a lot of Wissota shows at all in the month of September that year.
Well, is he from the east or west?
And he also, he's not from east or west.
Yeah, I don't know if I can really define him.
Edgington?
You're close. Same country.
Ricky Weiss.
Ricky Weiss.
Yes.
That's right, because Ricky came over and kicked the crap out of everybody because they had an issue down at Eldora that year, and he trucked it back the next night to race the Seitz.
Yes, and he won the Seitz that weekend.
Look at me giving a history lesson.
Didn't he win the Stampede?
Yes, he went on to win the 100.
Oh, that was
the Stampede. That was the year that Casino rained out on Friday for the autumn.
Yep, and then he went down
and they had to run Sunday, and he went down there Sunday and won Sunday. And then he went over to the next big special in Wisconsin.
Hunky.
No.
Oh, Red Clay.
No.
Red Clay.
Oh, yep. I was thinking
Red Clay Classic,
Red Clay.
won that, and he won the Fall Classic as well.
Yeah, that's a butt whooping and a half right there.
Yeah.
So he just went through and won the Invitationals.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, he was on a tear.
No, it's kind of fun.
Sure.
You know, just throwing it out there, just for a fun history lesson here, Mason. If you look back at Wissota Invitational winners and some of the bigger names that we've had come through our area, it's pretty interesting because you have enjoy your animal crackers, John. You just had like AJ Demo being relatively dominant along with Don Shaw and the last couple of years. And then Jimmy Mars last year was really strong. So Jimmy Mars, Don Shaw and AJ Demo. And then before that, it was who was it? It was Mars had a brief stint again out east. And then before that was Brady Smith. So it's interesting. And don't get me wrong, there are still a lot of our Wissota guys who won races in that time frame too. But you had like Ricky Weiss, Don, all the names I just ran off.
Demo,
Door.
You had Door, Wildung.
Well, yeah, but it's like all the guys who went to the next level and then came back after they learned some stuff there, and they're like, oh, if I just insert my knowledge from there to here and make these slight changes, it's like they've learned a lot in that short time out on the World of Outlaws and racing those bigger races.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they learn quick too, because I'm sure like all those bigger races in the World of Outlaws series, they have their stuff up to par. So.
Yep.
Yep. So kind of just a little brief history lesson on that. And the other winners that year at the WISSOTA 100 were Dave Kane in the mods, Dave Moss in the supers, Tim Johnson in the mod fours, which that was an interesting one.
That was surprising.
Skeeter Esty in the Midwest mods, and Justin Vogel in the street stocks. So interesting names for the WISSOTA 100. That was the first time it was at Fergus Falls. So that's who or what I'm repping. John, what about you?
Mason, before I start, were you there all 4 nights that year too? I know I was there all 4 nights. I don't remember if you made it for 3 nights or 4 nights.
I don't think I was there for the Wednesday night. I was there Thursday through Saturday for sure.
Was
Okay,
that the
yeah,
year
'cause
you
I
won
remember-
the 5K, Mason?
I want to say that was 2019.
Ah,
Okay.
So before John goes into his history lesson, I'm gonna blow up his ego a little bit. But Jessup and I ran into Casey Usatis this past weekend, and I know he listens and watches the podcast. Thank you, Casey, for tuning in. But he told Jessup, and he goes, I always learn so much by listening to your guys' podcast, and I'm like, probably because of John.
and
He
he
goes,
said
"Yeah,
yes.
it is."
Oh, that's too
But
funny.
continue, John.
Okay, well, I will give a history lesson again because we are upcoming on the Stock Car Stampede is coming up in about 2 weeks. So getting prepared for that. Been getting a lot of stuff put together because I do a lot of history backup, do a lot of promotional stuff and getting that all prepared. So of course I am repping a Stampede shirt. Mason took care of the 100 as I'll be in the 100 this week as well. It's for a great time. But this is the 47th annual Jamestown Stock Car Stampede shirts. So this is the one from 2018 shirt that has the 2017 winners on the back end of it. And now it's history lesson time. Who won in 2017 at the Stock Car Stampede? And we are going to start with the late model division.
Dustin Strand.
No.
Jeremy Keller.
No.
Han Shaw.
Yes.
Oh, sweet.
Because 2017 was the year that Don won the Seitz. He won the Stampede. He was just on a tear that year. He took home the national championship that year. Yes, so 2017. Now on to the IMCA modifieds, and the winner was already announced on this one.
Jeremy Keller.
Dustin Strand.
It was close. It was
Dustin
Dustin
Strand.
Strand, and he held off Jeremy Keller because Jeremy started deep in that field. I believe Jeremy started 14th or 15th in that feature and worked his way to the front and almost got by Dustin. Now, interesting part about 2017, because Mason, I don't know if you were there in 2017.
Was that the year that did they race on Sunday or Saturday afternoon?
Yes.
Yeah, I wasn't there for that finale.
Yes.
I was at a Bison game.
Yep. Yes, because Mason, you need to get your priorities straight. Just saying. But
it was quality time with my dad. All right.
Once
Aw.
again, what happened this
Okay.
past weekend, we still need to get your priorities straight. But on a long story short, Mason, you can cut that piece out, by the way, too.
No, leave it, Mason. Leave it.
But long story short, this was the year that the weather forecast was just terrible. Both days. The year before it rained, actually, it rained it out completely, and they had to move it to October. And then this year, the Friday night forecast was basically just for showers that night. And then Saturday was supposed to be rain starting later in the afternoon. So what they did was on Friday, they ran all the heats and they ran all the consies on Friday night. They were like, we're going to just keep running until we can get those all the way done. And they got them all the way done. And then on Saturday, they came back at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I believe it was 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I think it was 2 o'clock. And they ran all the features for their classes because that year they had bombers, which guys who won the bombers. It was a last
Wyatt
quarter
Rathwell
pass.
passed
Yes.
John Gartner Jr. coming out of 4, and it surprised everyone.
Yes. Yep. Wyatt got him coming out of 4. He passed him in the middle of turns 3 and 4. There was a lap car involved in that race as well. And Wyatt ended up picking up the Stampede win with the Bombers. This was also the first year of the Legends. Legends were added to the Stampede in 2017. And who picked up that first win? Okay, Becca, you don't get to answer because you're looking up your notes. Mason or Jessup, who won?
I was gonna guess Donovan
Lies.
Weist.
It was not Donovan Weist.
It was not?
It was not Donovan Weist. Look at Becca
Uh,
not being prepared.
Huh.
It
Give me
was a
4
youngster in a green legend.
It was a
Jaden
what?
Christ?
It was a young driver that was in a green, black, and white legend.
Huh.
That used to be
Tim-
very dominant back in the legend days as
Estenson?
well.
Hi, Wilkie?
Yes.
Oh, it's Tim Estenson.
It was
yeah.
Tim Estenson that won back in 2017.
Yeah, that's right.
I think I have
And-
those two
Hey,
switched
speaking
around.
of Tim,
That was the first year that he had picked up that was the first year the Legends were part of the Stampede, and the first year that he had picked up the Stampede win. Okay, we're moving on to Midwest Modifieds. Who won the Midwest Modifieds?
There's way
Jason
too many
Grimes.
to try to guess on this.
Jason Grimes.
Grimes was top 5, but no, he did not win.
Becca cheated.
Mason,
Lies.
Lucas Rodin.
No.
I'll give you a hint, Mason. This driver does have multiple Stampede victories in the Midwest Modifieds.
I want to guess Randy Klein.
You're wrong. Becca,
Brock Gronwald.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah.
yep, Brock picked up the win in 2017 over, it was Zach Ranke in second. So Zach had a very nice Stampede in runner-up position that year. Okay, Wissota Street Stocks. Who won in the Wissota Street Stocks?
Jerry Lamb.
No.
So
I know.
this is actually Jerry was actually not in a he was actually not directly in a street stock yet because he
Wasn't
bought
he
it in
racing
2018.
IMCA mod?
Yes, yep, he was still in the mod division at that time. So
Chris
Mason?
Michelson?
no,
Zach Frederick.
well, no, but okay, Becca, you go ahead.
Royce Jawowski.
Yes, Royce beat Bob Banish Jr. and Johnny Carter was right up there. Hunter Carter was up there in a brand new, it was a freshly gray wrapped 19H machine. He was up there as well. And the bookie was up there. So there was a lot of big names in the street stock division up there back in that year. IMCA Sport Mods. They were also added to the Stampede back in 2017. And who was your inaugural winner?
Luke Krogh?
Close, but no.
Robbie Roselli.
Yes.
Ah,
Jessup is correct. Robbie
That's why
Roselli
they
won
call me B-Mods Pack the Track.
back in
I-
2017. Jessup, you did not get the Midwest Modifieds correct, so you still are not very good at
Well,
mod
that's
stuff.
why we're packed
So-
the track. They pack the track. The sport mods race it.
Oh, Jessup, we're having
I just
problems hearing
upset
you. It looks
people.
like you're putting yourself on mute again. And on to so
Right.
So 2017 was a fun year because we had Bombers, Legends, Sport Mods, Midwest Mods, Street Stocks, Modifieds, late models, and the Slingshots. And I'll give you guys a heads up on the Slingshots. We had both a junior and a senior division back then. Jacoby Trout in the 84 picked up the junior Slingshots, and Connor McLaughlin picked up your senior Slingshots over Brody Edwards. So kind of a fun year. They had 270 cars total back in that year. The 62 IMC Modifieds was the highest car count out there. Sorry, easy for me to say.
wow.
During the Stampede. And yeah, it was a race against the weather that whole entire year, and I can't believe they got it in.
Dang. 62 IMCA modifieds. That's incredible.
Yeah, they had a big class of IMC Modifieds back there in 2017. So, and yeah, so I'm repping the 47th annual shirt for 2018. But again, we'll go through those winners. As we already know, Ricky Weiss won the late models in 2018. But we'll go through those winners on a future episode when I wear the 48th annual shirt.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the history lesson. You got double history lessons, folks. So you got really treated to some history in dirt track racing. So that's who or what we are repping. We'll go into our track pack report. All of us got to see some sort of racing action this weekend. We'll kick things off over at one of the mainstays of our area, the John Seitz Memorial. Kicked off Thursday with a prelude to the Johnny, which included Street Stocks, Midwest Mods, Modifieds, the newly added Super Stocks. They just ran heats on Thursday, and of course the late models, which was the NLRA points finale. So John and I were there. Jessup, you look like you're really wanting to say something right now.
Well, before
No.
Jessup goes, you want to know something, Mason? There was a lot of cars.
Yeah, yeah, I wasn't going there, but you guys keep talking. I'll privately message the group.
Okay. It was 171?
Yes. Yep. 55 late models for that night, in the upper 30s for both the Midwest mods and also the modifieds. And they had 15 super stocks and then 26 was soda street stock. So really good car counts across the board with several of the classes. And Mason, from my takeaway, it was a really good night for warm up before the sites
Mhm.
started on Friday, Saturday.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I was encouraged to see like another diverse field of late models. I think we had representation from 4 different states and then Canada. So we had a really good mix of late model drivers, especially. And it's always nice to see, kind of fun to see who's going to travel up for the other classes as well. I was really curious on the super stocks who would travel. Had quite a few from South Dakota, a lot of from the Bemidji area, which John Seitz is originally from. So I always think like it's a really great race weekend for the John Seitz. It sucks that it's really close to the 100 because I know we'd probably have a few more, but kind of people wanting to save their stuff up for the 100 coming up this week. And so, but yeah, overall, I thought it was some really good racing. We had some carnage throughout the
We
night
did.
in several of the
We
classes.
definitely did.
Yeah, several of the classes,
Yeah.
like in the heat races too, especially in the mods, I
Yeah.
think.
Especially the mods. The mods had the most carnage throughout the night. The soda mods and Mason, that was a theme for us both on Thursday and on Friday with the mod divisions. So I felt like the mods were definitely the class that were driving really hard this weekend. It had a lot of sheet metal and other accidents that happened throughout the nights. The streets had problems with cautions on Thursday to keep it going. They were definitely caution based again on Saturday, but it was more for like single car spins or maybe one car spins. It wasn't so much for direct wrecks like we had on Thursday night. And the same thing with the Midwest mods. Midwest mods just had a lot of cautions on Saturday as well. But on Thursday they went clean and green. They didn't have one, they had a caution right away at the beginning, and they just went clean and green right after that for the Midwest modified feature. So that's what we kind of had on there too, and then a really good race in the late models on Thursday night before we set up the prelude.
Absolutely.
The actual John Seitz.
Yeah, and getting into some of the racing action, street stocks kicked off the feature action, and definitely a stacked field of cars when you have guys like Justin Vogel, Kyle Anderson, Hunter Carter, Cole Gresseth starting up towards the front, and it was definitely I'd say it was those 4 that were really putting on the show throughout the feature. They were like side by side for the front 4 positions for a lot of those laps, and Vogel was mainly leading that entire race and was trying to hold off Anderson and Carter, and Hunter was like kind of poking his nose underneath him, but can never get by him. Although, unfortunately for Vogel, and kind of the theme of his weekend, unfortunately, kind of started to push up in the corners a little bit. From reading from one of his Facebook posts, sounded like his belts broke or something like that. His right front was broken when he pulled off the track from the lead. So that was really unfortunate because he's in a heavy points battle for national points. So that opened the door wide open from there.
Yeah. And Hunter took advantage of it. Hunter picked up his first win of 2023. And he looked really strong though, because he was in the first heat race of the night. Track was really heavy right away to start the night off, and he drove his way up to 3rd in that heat race. And that was not an easy task because he started 9th and drove his way up to 3rd. So and there was not a caution within that heat race. So he was definitely on the move.
Yep, and a lot of those lineups this weekend were set up by passing points, so definitely you wanted to pass in the heat races so you could get a good starting spot up towards the front. So congratulations to Hunter Carter on getting the win on Thursday. And Midwest Mods, honestly, nothing really to report from that race because that was just clean 20 laps straight to the finish. Matt Scal, no one could touch him. No one absolutely could not touch him. Even through lap traffic, he was very methodical and patient. And Nate Reynolds and Austin Hunter were kind of closing in, but not really enough to really make a challenge. So Matt Scow, who's kind of had a struggle this year, talked to him in the pits a little bit too. He just hasn't been able to race a whole lot and just had some really unfortunate luck, but kicked things off with a good win in the Midwest Wilds on Thursday. The modifieds, trying to look back on modifieds, I know that was a pretty action-packed race. Like I said, they had a bunch of carnage in the heat races, but feature race, definitely quite a bit of movement and quite a bit of hard action. What do you remember for that, John?
Yeah, no, I would agree, Mason, on that one too. I mean, the mod race was very interesting to see because right up front, I mean, you had some really good mod guys start up front. You had Joey Thomas was right up there, Zach Johnson was right up there, and then the guy that has River Cities figured out is Tyler Peterson. And Tyler was just on a tear in his 33 machine. And yeah, once feel like Mason, once you get into lap graphics at River Cities, because it happens pretty quick because the track's pretty small, it's pretty fast. On that one too, Tyler is one of those drivers that just he knows how to get through lap traffic really well at River Cities and is able to stretch out leads because of that factor. So, but yeah, no, so it was a really entertaining race to watch on Thursday.
Yep, and he sliced from the 7th starting position, got to the front, held off Dustin Strand, and Zach Johnson moved from 12th to 3rd. Zach's always another fast runner at River Cities, and so those are your top 3 for the modifieds on Thursday night. And then the late models, that had some action too.
Yeah.
There was, so like we said, it was the NLRA points finale. So a lot of the NLRA regulars were kind of jockeying for their final points position. Mike Gresseth had a pretty substantial lead going in. So basically just had to start the A main and got his 3rd NLRA title. So congratulations to Mike Gresseth on that. And yeah, there was a lot of heavy hitters, obviously, with the Seitz Memorial there. I would say the fastest car on the track was probably Tyler Peterson. Had rough timing with cautions. Whenever he'd get the lead, he'd get set back a row and to kind of have to try to make his way back towards the front. And unfortunately, one of the instances resulted in some contact that spun AJ Demo around in turn 3. And unfortunately, that was the end of the night for the TPO, which is unfortunate because he was on the move. I would say, what would you say, Don? He was probably the fastest car.
Yeah, I think it was fastest car. He had the high side working. And if you get the high side working at River Cities, you're pretty dominant and pretty hard to beat. And he had that working, and actually that's one thing that makes Dustin Strand really successful at River Cities too, is his ability to work the high line as well. And yeah, so Tyler was on a rail, definitely made contact with AJ Demo, and got called for the caution and basically called it a night and saved his stuff for the Seitz Memorial, which I don't blame him at all. I mean, there was 27 cars on the track. We were about halfway through that feature event already, and you have basically already probably learned what you were going to learn for the site stuff, and yeah, so I don't blame Tyler at all for going to his side. And then AJ went on to win. He's very dominant when it comes to River Cities as well, and he's one of the guys at River Cities that's really good at hooking the bottom. So AJ is one of those drivers that can hook the bottom and make up a ton of time at Grand Forks, and he looked very strong again on Thursday as he set up his sites weekend on Thursday night. And then, you have to give shout outs as well to Mike Gresseth, like Mason's mentioned. He was right there and finished again in the top 5 and picked up that third championship in the NLRA. I mean, he's had a really good season again in that 17 machine.
Yeah, and shout out to Scott Ward, started 16th and ended up 3rd. So
yes, Scott was another guy that was rallying up on the high side. He was really, really right up there on the cushion, making it work. So I mean, Scott had a really nice run as well.
Yeah, so that was a fun Thursday night at the Prelude to the Johnny, and moving quickly on to Friday, just a couple of feature races there with Streets and Midwest Mods running their heat races. So we got feature action for the supers and modifieds, and the late models kind of just did their heats and the pole dash. So supers got to the feature action first, and with it being the first time that they were there, didn't really know what to expect necessarily. I think they handled themselves pretty well on the quarter mile, or no, 3/10. That's what it is. It's a weird distance there. Clean and green. So I mean, they clicked off their laps pretty fast. And Brandon Duhlman, who mentioned in Victory Lane that he went to college up in Grand Forks, kind of made the 7-hour trip from Winona, Minnesota to come up and race there. So nice to be rewarded with a nice win with the Super Stocks returning to River City. So big congrats out to Brandon Duhlman in the 0. The modifieds raced it was the Al Delane Memorial. So they were racing for 3,092 to win, and they had, I believe, 41 modifieds on Friday night. So they had a very, very stout field of mods. And so, John, I find it interesting that you mentioned that Tyler Peterson is a wizard at moving through lap traffic, because unfortunately that bit him on Friday night.
Yeah, he was trying to get through. They were basically 3 wide in front of him, and he tried to make it 3 wide through the row back because they were basically 3 wide, then double wide, and then it was him. And he tried to go to the high side of them, and there was a small cushion there on the high side, and it was there pretty much almost all night. And he right on turn 2, and he hit it just right and ended up going over the berm. And when he went over the berm, and you guys have all been to River Cities, and you know too, if you hit that berm just right and you get off the banking, you literally slide down. There's usually not a a lot of hope for getting back on the track if you go over the side of the track. So he hit that, slid off of the track, and that ended his run at that $3,000 paycheck with the Delaney Memorial on Friday. Then Mason had opened the door for Zach Johnson and Zach and Brock Grunwald and Joey Thomas. And I mean, they put on a great show up front. And then you had Jake Smith coming through the field in the 21 machine, who started pretty deep in the field too, making his way to the top 5.
Yeah, so like John mentioned, Zach Johnson and Brock Grunwald was leading a lot of that race after Tyler went off the track, but his car kind of faded towards the end, and I think he got involved in a caution. So unfortunately, I don't think he ended up with last car finishing. But Zach Johnson ended up with a $3,000 payday in front of Joseph Thomas, Ward Emery, Jake Smith, and Mike Stearns. So some 5 pretty good names there at the top of the running order. And so fun race to watch in the mods. Definitely a lot of moving and shaking there. And then the pole dash, they kind of do a 15-lap pole dash for the 92-lap Wissota late model race. And that went to the tent of Cole Searing. And by that time, obviously, that was the last race of the night, so the track had really slowed down. It was very technical, but you could still race all over. I mean, it's fun to watch like Gresseth and TPO running the high side, which you usually don't see Gresseth running the high side. So that was interesting to kind of get a little preview of maybe what was to come on Saturday.
Yeah, and they kind of migrated their way to the high side to where the majority of that race they were kind of towards the middle to the bottom, and then those drivers went to the high side and they started making time up. And if it would have been like another 10 laps, Mason, I think it would have been really interesting because I think they would have been kind of all over the place on that track because they're kind of strung out, and then they all kind of tightened back up towards the end of that 15-lap race.
Yeah, definitely. I was like, man, I want to see another 5 or 10 more laps. I think it would have gotten interesting. So yeah, so that was Thursday and Friday at the Seitz Memorial. Give ourselves a little bit of breather because Becca and Jessup got to get to some racing. They took in the second night of the Sauerkraut 500 down at Wishick. So Pelkies, how did Wishick go?
I thought for sure Jessup would want to jump in and say how great it is. I love Wishick. I'm from Napoleon originally, which is like 30 miles down the road. So lots of familiar faces at the Tri-County Speedway for me. I loved it. It's a fairly new invitational for them, and I was glad to see a lot of cars came from all over to come race with those guys down there. In fact, we had because the Wissota Street Stock points battle for the national points is really tight. We had Tucker Peterson there. You also had Braden Brower down there. So those guys did a nice job racing down there as well. I had a great time. What about you, Jessup?
I had a lot of fun. It was good to see. It was good to just get out and not have to worry about having any responsibilities at the track other than just being a fan and enjoying the races. And overall, racing was really good. It monsooned over there earlier in the day, and for them to get the races in, I thought it was pretty cool. They had all hands on deck, as I heard they had twin graders or twin blades, as people call it in the track prepping part of the world. And they had twin blades out there working the track, scraping the top off. And some drivers weren't a fan of that. They felt they should have just ran it in. And I will be the first to say there was no way they were going to run it in. And they made the right call to blade and get it down to a level where they could actually get the night in.
Did you mention who were the people that were doing the blading and the packing and the watering and all that?
It sounded like it was all the legend drivers. So hats off to those guys. You guys get a big thumbs up from us over here because that takes a lot of, what would you say?
Determination,
heart, commitment, and selflessness to do that. So that was really cool.
Excellent.
No doubt.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. Yeah, I saw pictures and I was kind of driving over that way, so I guess you can kind of blame me for the weather if you really want to. But
Rain Man has returned.
I guess it had monsooned, I guess, before I even left Fargo. So I didn't even realize it was supposed to rain over there.
The weather knew. The
It
atmosphere
rained.
is like Mason's coming.
It rained overnight and into the early morning. It just wasn't very warm for the moisture to be soaked into the dirt. So it took a little extra effort. And thank you to all those drivers who hopped in those graders, those blades, the water trucks, the pack trucks, whatever, the equipment to get the track in, because they wanted to race and they made sure that they got to race, and that's awesome. Great payouts for the Sauerkraut 500 down at the Tri-County Speedway in Wishick, North Dakota. It was $650 to win for the hobby stocks. $625 for the hobby stocks, $650 for the Legends, $650 for the streets, and $950 for the Westota Midwest Modifieds. And then a super fan, Dwayne, pitched in $250 for all four of those winning drivers. So essentially they were racing for nearly $900 to $1,000, and that's fantastic. That's amazing for a small track in the middle of nowhere. So hats off to those track sponsors, that super fan, for adding money to the purse. But great racing all night long, starting with the hobby stocks. It was Chris Michelson who has been kind of taking a back seat to racing. He's a former track champion at the Dakota Speedway, took some years off, took a break from racing, came back into it for a year or so in the Westota Street Stocks, just wasn't feeling it, went back into, I don't know, what do you want to call it, retirement, another break, whatever it is, but coming back out with, I'm
One could
not
call
sure.
it a darkness retreat.
Sure, yes.
What?
Sure.
It's like the Aaron Rodgers thing.
I was hoping that's where you were going with that, but I wasn't sure.
Why would you think that about me? I don't like that. I feel subjected to that.
I
Mason,
feel like
John and Becca need to really better themselves and not think the negative of everything.
I usually go to Mason's defense when.
Yes,
okay,
but
whatever.
you were thinking you were going to throw me under a bus without even knowing. You know what they say about people who assume, Becca? They make an ass out of you and me. And I don't want that.
All right, so starting with the hobby stocks, Chris Michelson, who took a small break from dirt track racing, he hopped in his dad's hobby stock, Kurt Michelson, and he won on night one and backed it up again on night two, holding off his nephew Jaden Michelson for the win. So congratulations to Chris Michelson for taking home and sweeping the victories down at the Sauerkraut 500. Moving on to the Midwest Modifieds, who were racing for essentially over $1,000, thanks to that super fan Dwayne for pitching in that money. It was the Ranke brothers, Nate and Zach, battling for the win, but it was Nate who held off his brother for the victory. Congratulations to Nate Ranke in the Midwest Modifieds, or the MWM Smackdown. As Jessup likes to refer to them.
They're so much more entertaining if you just say that.
I know. We went to Grand Rapids once, and that was your biggest takeaway, and I love it. Moving on to the Westota Street Stocks. It was Jeff Hellman holding off Jody Michelson, a battle of the 54s for the win. But this Jeff Hellman across the finish line first. This was his first victory since his grandpa passed away. So this was a very meaningful win for Jeff. So kind of cheered up a little bit in victory lane. So that definitely meant a lot to him. And congratulations to Jeff Hellman for picking up the victory down there. And then in the INEX Legends, it was a heated battle up front. A little bit of a chaotic race as the Legends really struggle to keep it green and clean on the track. Jessup, what do you think of the Legend feature?
Well, as they say from time to time, the cautions came early and they came often. And there was a bit of a scary wreck there where it appeared that Black got made contact with Don Hayes, and that kind of bumped him out, causing him to spin in front of, I think it was Kevin Jensen.
Correct.
And it looked like he got T-boned really hard, and they had ambulances, and they were signaling to get out there like immediately, and I was like, "Oh crap, here we go. This is not." I have a good streak of not seeing people die at the racetrack. That's a good streak to have. Most of you want to have. Now, fortunately, they both walked out from the wrecks under their own power. One was a little worse for wear, but he got dropped off back at his trailer, and they were very fortunate. Unfortunately, due to all the wrecks and cautions, the race ended due to a time limit expiration, which isn't ideal for the second place runner of Preston Martin as he's going for national points, but it was ideal for Donovan Weiss to double up for the weekend, and hats off to you.
Yeah.
Overall, great weekend in Wishick. If there's anyone out there that has not been to the Tri-County Speedway in Wishick, it is truly a magical place. Just great small town, hometown feel, and yeah, it's just great racing at the track. So definitely would recommend that racetrack to anyone.
And
Great food too.
I would say it's interesting here. Interesting fact: when I moved here, the Sauerkraut 500 would not be considered one of the bigger invitational races on that weekend for the state, because they had at least one or two other races going on. Now for car count wise, it is the second biggest race of the weekend and for the state. So that's pretty cool, I think. And we got a friend who's not a fan of cherry picking, and I will say, there was no free points this weekend at Wishick, especially for Wasota, and even for NX Legends for national points. Everything was hard fought. If you look through the fields, very deep in talent and very strong competitors, a lot of drivers who are very talented and are, I would say, well respected amongst their peers for their driving abilities and the ability to will a car to victory. So top-notch drivers, top-notch racing, top-notch entertainment.
We briefly touched on this, Jessup, that we had two drivers racing for a national championship in the Minnesota Street Stocks. That was Braden Brower and Tucker Peterson. Unfortunately for Tucker Peterson, he ended up pulling off pretty early in that race. He finished with the DNF, and then Braden Brower finished fourth. So good run for Braden. Bad luck for Tucker. And then I found out this weekend, this was the first time that Tri-County Speedway ran a B main in the INX Legends, which kind of took me by surprise considering how healthy the car counts are for the INX Legends everywhere in the state of North Dakota. But this was the first time they ran a B main down there. And I was glad to help them with the point breakdown for B mains before the races, so that the next time that happens, they can easily apply those points to those drivers who may be chasing a points championship in the INX Legends. So overall, great weekend in Wishick, and I highly recommend that track to anyone if you haven't been yet.
Did you have a tonner when you were there?
Nope, just a bacon cheeseburger.
Well, that's still pretty good.
It's too much burger for me. I can't handle it all.
I always go with a half tonner.
I literally have to maybe skip breakfast and lunch to have a tonner and enjoy it.
So what's the difference between a bacon cheeseburger and the half tonner?
Isn't there onions on the tonner?
Yeah, there's onions on the tonner. I know that.
Well, I just want more bacon.
I think it's also a bigger burger patty as well. It's a tonner, it's more burger for your.
No, it's a half tonner.
Well, a half tonner is just because a tonner's two patties, I believe, right?
Yeah.
The half tonner is one patty, so I'll go with the bacon cheeseburger, which I'll call the half tonner for myself.
It's pretty much the same thing, just you don't get bacon on it, but
yep.
I know there's a good reason to check out Wishick.
Oh, and don't forget that they have a golf course right next to the.
Yeah.
Because we know a lot of our racing friends and family like to golf, and unfortunately with this little guy
next door.
I can't.
This was the first summer that Jessup and I did not golf before the races, and I was kind of sad by that.
Yep.
Well, you have to put that on the calendar for next year then.
Mm-hmm.
So finishing off the Seitz weekend in Grand Forks. John was in person. I was not there. I kind of watched from afar once I got done with my other obligations. But John, how did Saturday night go?
Saturday night was a lot of fun. It was it was actually a pretty quick night overall. Um, heat races clicked off pretty quick for the mods and then also for the super stocks because they ran a complete show for both those two classes again. And consies went pretty fast for the Midwest mods. Streets did not have a consi. They had 24 cars that showed up on Friday. Ran the feature event on Saturday, so they did not have any consies in the streets. So the Midwest mods clicked off their consi races pretty quick within both. They had two of them, so they clicked off both of those pretty fast. And then we rolled into the features pretty early, and we still got done around midnight. But obviously, it was about a 2 hour plus for the 92 lap show, just because of track prep beforehand, the fuel stop in between, caution flags during the races. We actually had a couple of situations where they did red flag it, no rollovers or anything else, but just to clean up some of the messes that were on the track. And luckily, note to self on this one too, with watching the late models, there was definitely some late model carnage that happened throughout the night, but it wasn't terminal carnage to where somebody would get destroyed in a wreck or anything else like that one too. Because there was a couple of pretty big wrecks where those drivers were able to continue under their own power, and most of it was just sheet metal damage. So that was good to see as well. That nobody basically got really destroyed from a car perspective. So let's go through the feature finish and results. So we're going to start here with the streets. And the street stocks as a whole, they put on a show. There was definitely some beat and banging during that feature event. But the theme of that feature event was definitely a very fast track right away because they ran about the first 10 laps green and did not have a cautioner in those first 10 laps, and there were some movers and shakers. Unfortunately, national points leader Justin Vogel had some issues again. He broke during the feature event running in a battle for second, third, and fourth. He was actually running third or fourth right during that time frame when he broke. He was right up there in the thick of the battle and pulled off during green flag conditions and just tough break again for Justin. The driver though that looked really strong on Saturday night in the streets, and I have to give him a ton of credit. He's picked up a couple of track championships already this year. He's still a youngster in the division. And that's Paul Gresseth. Paul has looked really good in his street stocks. Mason, I think he's 16 now, if I'm not mistaken.
16,
I think he's 16 years old. And he's coming into his own in that class. He definitely picked up the track championships over at obviously the Buffalo River Speedway was where he picked up one of his track championships at, and then Mason the I-94 Speedway as well. I think he was track champion correct for this year. And I mean that's a tough feat over there in I-94 for sure, because obviously home of the Whistle 100. I mean that's sweet. So but no, Cole looked really good. But the driver on the move, and I was watching him quite a bit. There was two of them. Kyle Anderson was marking his way to the front. He was right there in the thick of it with the battle. But Hunter had a starter that went out on Friday. So he won Thursday night. Didn't even start his heat race on Friday. Never hit the track on Friday. He started tail into the feature in 24th. And he was slowly working his way to the front. He was kind of taking it easy right away. And then cautions came out and he cracked the top 10. And eventually he cracked the top 6, and eventually he was cracking the top 4, and then he was lining up third. And they had a restart happen with only about 3 laps remaining, and Hunter lined up third on the high side, and he got the run to the high side of Cole coming out of turn 2 with only a couple laps to go. And they were side by side at the line, and Hunter won by inches. He went from worst to first that night in the feature event. So congratulations to Hunter. Back-to-back wins during that weekend, and just a really good way. Unfortunately, he had some bad luck as well as Hunter broke a tranny as well after that feature event. He said it was kind of going, and you could tell because during cautions they had one of they red flagged him on the track because they had to clean up some stuff over in turns 3 and 4, and when they were cleaning it up directly, they parked the cars in the front straight away, and Hunter had to be started back to get to his spot. And after he got pushed, he was able to get going. And I was like, okay, something's definitely either the starter's still going out or tranny stuff. So with that things, but hopefully he can get a new tranny put back in. He's still got a couple of special events that he definitely wants to hit up this year. So hopefully he can get that in. He's definitely coming into his own. Midwest mods, Matt Scow. He started up front. He survived several restarts because they had a lot of cautions during that feature event, and he was untouchable. nobody was even getting close to him. So Matt picked up a win again at the Seitz. Congratulations to Matt. That was double up for the weekend as well. Same thing with Hunter. And those two drivers just looked really good this weekend at the Seitz. In the super stock division, that race was very entertaining. And what I mean by that is that Matt Sparby, he has ran a super stock at Grand Forks before. Out of the Bemidji area. He's a longtime veteran in the Wissota Super Stocks, and he looked really good, really good on Saturday night. Jason Hobble was right there. He was, a former three stock driver that's now in the Super Stocks out of Wisconsin. He's another driver that looks super good. And then the driver that was kind of on the move was Don Shaw. And Don was driving one of Hankemeyer's cars. So he actually was in his backup car. And Don started that feature event a little bit farther back and had worked his way up, and he was running a little bit higher than the rest of the cars on the track. And if there would have been another maybe like 3 to 4 laps, it would have been very entertaining to see, because Sparby and Shaw would have probably been going at it, because Sparby was running right on the bottom and Shaw was running about middle of the track. So that would have been a very interesting battle to watch. But nope, congratulations to Matt. Picked up the feature win over there in Grand Forks in the Super Stocks. In the mods, it was basically a battle for second. So Tyler was on a rail. He got the lead early, and nobody was catching him. So Tyler Peterson picked up the feature win on that night. And then, as I mentioned, it was a really good race behind him between a variety of drivers on who was going to get second, third, fourth. Brock Grunwald was right up there. Zach Johnson obviously was right up there. Joey Thomas was right up there, and it was just a really good battle overall for the mods. So that was a very good race over there too for the modifieds on Saturday. And then we went to the late model feature event. 92 laps. And on lap 2, either lap 2 or lap 3, they had a big wreck. And the big wreck happened over in turns 1 and 2. And they were 3 wide going into turns 1. And actually there was no contact physically made from the bottom up. However, there was contact made between a couple drivers, and Jeff Massagill went around as he tried to miss the guys that were below him, went around, and Brad Sang was running right behind him in the line and literally had nowhere to go and got up onto the front of the car. I mean, based on looking at the replay of that wreck, I'm surprised actually Brad did not roll, because he got up on the car like this and rode it and didn't actually dig in and flip it. So yeah, but they red flagged the race for that one too. Got it cleaned up. Good news is though is that both drivers were able to continue. Massagill's front end was just a little bit up, obviously from an aero perspective, and Brad's right side was just a little bit pushed in. So that was good news that they were able to continue from that wreck. But yeah, we continued on racing. Some surprises though. So Don Shaw and John Sang got together over in turns 3 and 4. Shaw went to the bottom of Sang. Sang was right there. Contact was made. Shaw went around, damaged the right front. His right front was a little bit towed on that one too, so he pulled it into the pits right after that. So your defending champion was out of the race. And then they had the fuel stop, and right after the fuel stop, AJ Demo, who a lot of people were picking to win that event just because he's been so dominant, spun out all by his lonesome over in turns 1 and 2, right after the restart. And that kind of changed the complexion, because you could kind of see that because Demo was running right around 6th, 7th during that time frame, and just slowly kind of, keeping his tires under check and everything, waiting for the track to slick off just a little bit. And that kind of changed the complexion. You could just tell right after that happened that the complexion of the race kind of just changed. And Tyler Peterson got around Cole Kill. Cole led a lot of that feature race. Cole had a great Seitz, ran really well on Thursday, ran really well again on Friday and Saturday, and led a lot of the race right away at the beginning stages on Saturday night. Him and Cole Searing were going at it, and then Tyler Peterson joined the mix, and Tyler got around Cole after they had the fuel stop and led for quite a while. And Tyler looked really good. Through lap traffic, he was probably one of the best cars on the track. Shane Edgington had slowly but surely saved his tires, was working his way to the front. And when the caution came out, there was a caution that came out with right around 20 laps remaining. And that cleared up lap traffic and cleared up basically kind of the track itself. And Tyler Peterson was right there. Then it was Edgington, and then it was Cole Hill, Cole Searing, Mike Gresseth was right there. And it was a very interesting restart. And the reason why I say that is because Tyler Peterson got the lead, but wasn't really lean away from Edgington like he did before. Edgington was kind of staying right in striking distance behind him. They got into lap traffic. Tyler got behind a slower lap car, was battling with him. Nothing really from a contact perspective or anything else for those two. Got around him on the front straightaway and dove to the bottom in turns 1 and 2 and clipped the tire with the left front. And it was interesting to watch because that definitely changed the race complexion because Tyler had a really, really, really good car before that. But I would have been curious to see what would have happened if Tyler didn't clip that tire
Yeah.
because Edgington was still coming because Shane was able to move around the track, I believe even a little bit more than Tyler at that point because Tyler was starting to burn up his tires. It looked like, based on watching in the grandstands, that he could definitely not navigate as well through traffic as he did before, and Edgington still had that mobility throughout the car because Edgington caught him quickly even before that tire was hit. So, but after that, Tyler was pretty tight in the car, kind of messed up the front nose. Edgington got the run to the bottom of him, got the lead, and then Tyler started dropping back pretty fast after that, and then pulled in underneath the caution. As Syrian and Gresseth got together over there in turns 3 and 4, Gresseth went pit side. Cole got his spot back and finished top 3. But yeah, it was Edgington that ended up winning that event. Shout out to Chad Becker. Chad has struggled over at the River City Speedway during the Seitz. I mean, he did not make the feature on Thursday during the Prelude. He actually was 1 spot out for making the main event on Thursday night. So he sat on the sidelines for the feature event. He did make it through a consi on Saturday, started 20th. By the time the fuel break happened, he was up to 7th or 8th, and he had kind of stayed right around that 6th position, and then worked his way up to 2nd. And he was railing the high side. He was one of the drivers that could get up on the high line and he could go. So he was one that was right there too at the finish. But it was Edgington, Becker, Therian was right there. Holshill had a little bit of problems on a restart with only a few laps left and dropped back and worked his way back up into the top 5. And then shout out to Jeff Provenzino. Jeff had a little bit of struggles in his heat race on Friday. In the consi on Saturday, a lot of people didn't see this as well, but on Saturday, he got involved in a wreck really early on in that consi race and went pit side to change the tire and started last on the consi. And these consis were, 20 cars long, pretty much 20 cars deep, 18 to 20 cars deep. And started last on that consi field and worked his way back up into, I believe it was the 8th or 9th spot during, I think it was the 8th spot during the consi race, and then ran the last chance showdown, started back in row 4 and worked his way up and won that event. He got around Joey Peterson with 2 laps remaining. He passed him on the high side with 2 to go. They had a caution. Jeff restarted in 3rd. He got the high side, he got it railing, and was able to get working right back up there. And congratulations to him because he started the feature 25th and finished 8th. So good job to Jeff as well. Jeff had a nice run, but no, very good weekend at the Seitz. I definitely enjoyed it again. It's one of my favorite shows throughout the year just because of the amount of competition you have in the late model division. I'm definitely a late model guy. I like Minnesota Modifieds as well, Midwest Mod Streets, Super Stocks. So it was a fun weekend overall, and just a blast to be back at the Seitz and racing in memory of a great man. I can't believe it's already been 17 years old since we've lost John.
Yeah, it's definitely a special weekend, and one that a lot of people and fans look forward to. And it's always fun to see like the Canadians that come down. It's a great weekend overall. So really bummed that I missed the finale this year, unfortunately, in which John was kind enough to remind me that I was missing out.
It's okay. Fans and drivers and everybody that listens to our podcast, I was very, very, very comfortable sending Mason lots of pictures of the racing action on Saturday night, and then also sending pictures of where he would have been sitting in the grandstands as well. So, to let him know that his seat was still available, even though he wasn't there.
Greatly appreciated, my friend. Becca, did you want to do a quick shout out on the Supernationals and some of the locals that did pretty well this last week?
Yeah, so that wrapped up also on Saturday night, and Supernationals set all sorts of records, which if you want the very detailed list of different records that they broke, you should definitely check out Ryan Clark's post that he came out with within the last day or so, because he goes into very in-depth analysis about different things that records that they broke and all sorts of great things like that. But real quick, so in the IMCA modifieds, it was Tim Ward, who was also your Dakota Classic Modified Tour champion. He took home the victory in the big dance. For the IMCA modifieds, Colin Hibden, one of our local drivers here, he finished 4th in a very hard fought battle that came down right at the checkered flag. Travis Hagen, who got in on the very last day. Yeah, he charged through the field to finish 14th, and Brady Biella, he unfortunately hit a DNF. He finished fairly back in the pack, but congratulations to our local IMCA modified drivers who represented us well on the national stage. In the IMCA stock cars, it was Dylan Thornton who took home the victory. We had Tom Berry Jr. I know he doesn't live here anymore, but he did live here in North Dakota for a couple of years. Won some track championships around the state, but he unfortunately had a DNF as well. He finished 20th. In the sport mods, it was Jake Sacco who took home the victory. In the hobby stocks, it was Mike Smith. And then I'm going to go back to last Tuesday of the IMCA Supernationals. In the sport compacts, it was Devin Jones who took home with the victory, but we had a local driver in that feature race. That was Alex Thompson. He finished 19th in his very first IMCA Supernationals appearance. So congratulations to our local drivers. There were many more, which Jessup covered on Dakota Dirt. So you can check out the very long list of local drivers from our area who went down to the Supernationals, but those were the drivers that made it in the features. Those were your feature winners. Congratulations to all of those drivers. It was a great week. I enjoyed watching from my office. Don't tell my boss. I watched from the gym. I also watched at home at night and whatnot. So it was a great week. I enjoyed it. And they do such a nice job with just the pop and circumstance of just making that event feel super special. Loved it. They do a really nice job down there. And I hope other big sanctioning bodies take a little bits and pieces and apply that to their big year-end shows. So yeah, it was great. It was a great week. I enjoyed it. So yeah, those were your feature winners, and congratulations to all those guys, especially our local drivers.
Yeah, that was fun to follow this week. It was definitely fun to see, like in modifieds in particular. I mean, Travis and Brady were kind of right on the edge of like transferring in on like their qualifying days, and Colin got in, I believe, on the first day. So I mean,
yes,
definitely represented well down in Boone, and that's a very, very strong feat to do that with 200, almost 250, I believe, modifieds or cars. So awesome. I ventured over to Buffalo River on Sunday to get the last few features of the Corn Cup, so I'll quickly go through the results from Sunday night. For the sport mods, it was Rich Pavlicek, who I believe doubled up on the weekend, so he's riding the hot streak heading into some more races coming up. Lightning Sprints went to Alex Trusinski in the 10. Andy Pick took the Race Saver Sprints. Street Stocks, Cole Gresseth. Inex Legends, Ryan Broseth. IMCA Hobby Stocks, Tim Arnis. Short Trackers, Weston Clausen. And Matt Auckland got the modifieds. For IMCA modifieds, he had a rough weekend up at the sites too. He just was kind of on the struggle bus and kind of got involved in everyone's mess. So nice that he ended up the weekend with the win at the Corn Cob Nationals. That's also a big racing event that takes place on the same weekend. So that wraps up our Track Packer report, and we'll get into what is upcoming next with Mr. Dakota Dirt.
Oh my goodness, though, Jessica, before you go, race fans, drivers, and everyone out there, if you want your one-stop shop for everything North Dakota racing news, results, recaps, schedules, and much more, you have to check out Dakota Dirt. They are social on social media platforms. Check them out on Facebook and their website at dakotadirt.org. Other than that, check them out. They are your one-stop shop for everything North Dakota racing.
Thank you, John. We have a interesting little week coming up here for our local races. When we are winding down, you don't really think there's a lot out there, but oddly, there's a lot out there still for you race fans to see, especially in the state of North Dakota. Now, Friday night, we have River Cities doing their season end, kind of all sprint car fiesta type of bonanza type of deal. I would definitely want to go, but I can't make it due to work and other commitments. But that'll be a fun night over there as they close down the River City Speedways with the winged monsters. So it'll be good to see those guys out on the track over on the east side. Now on Saturday, the west side, I think it's the Fall Classic over at the Williston Basin Speedway. We talk about invitational races. This is one of those sneaky, quiet invitational races that's been hanging around year after year after year, and it's a kind of a bookmarker. You know it's going to be there at the end of the season, and it's one that all the Western fans always look forward to attending. And this year is no different, as it's a 2-day show, a Saturday, Sunday show, and it involves having late models, and it is the fall roundup. Why do I keep wanting to say Fall Classic? I don't know. My bad. Sorry, guys. It's midnight here, and I'm gotta be up in about 4.5 hours. So, anyways, the fall roundup over at the Williston Basin Speedway. It should be a good time, and I'm really interested to see how many late models they get to go out over there, as I think you've got a good chance to get a lot of those Western late models to come attend. So that'll be a good time. And then you have the Devil's Lake Speedway, just coming off a pretty good weekend, not 2 weekends ago, for their Renegade Wingless Nationals. And they are having the Pure Stock Nationals now. And they just released the weekend format, and it's pretty interesting, as they also have 1,000 to win 4-cylinder division. It's pretty much kind of like their Pure Stocks. It's a home track rule type of deal. You could be a IMCA Sport Compact, you could be a Wasota Hornet, you could be a short tracker, and as long as you fit your rules, you got a chance to win some big money out there. And I think you're going to see some pretty fun names up there for that as well. And they will be racing it from, if I read it right, it looks like it's going to be 40 laps for that feature and 30 laps for the Pure Stocks as well. So a nice little show there. And that's about it for North Dakota. So while I say there's a lot of racing left, there's not really that much racing left for us. But for kind of wrapping up the season, this is a pretty good weekend of racing for any North Dakota racing fan.
Yep, absolutely. So definitely a few opportunities around the state of North Dakota. Outside of the state of North Dakota, it's pretty simple. There's just a couple events going on. Before I get to the big one, Buffalo River's finishing off their season on Sunday the 17th. You can either take in the legendary 100 at Cedar Lake or the Wasota 100 at I-94 EMR Speedway. And,
Lies. There's so much more out there. We just have to find it.
well, this is true. But in the region we mainly cover, those are the main ones. And so I haven't looked at totally at the format of the legendary 100. I believe it runs the same. Is it Thursday through Saturday? I believe this weekend. And I think they do qualifying and time trials to set their feature lineups.
It is interesting.
Yeah, it's a different format than any other race that I've seen. It seems like.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot of stuff behind that as well, such as the pro stocks / super stocks being forced not to race that weekend. So they are going to inadvertently affect another invitational race towards the end of the season because of decisions. So,
yep. And then the Wasota 100 kicks off tomorrow, the 12th, for practice night. And then Wednesday through Saturday is the racing, which I believe Wednesday is the finale for the Structural Buildings Late Model Challenge Series. So that'll be the last race for that series.
John, I got a question for you. You know Wasota a lot more than I do. Prior to I-94, did they ever have a practice night?
Yes.
Okay, I was just curious because it just seems kind of odd. I think.
Yeah, Huron used to have multiple practice. They used to have multiple
Really?
years where they had practice nights. Yep, they used to have practice night all the time down in Huron. And then back in the day, though, like way back in the day, the 100 when it was moved to when it was sold 100 was moved over to Rice Lake and then also to Brainerd.
Brainerd.
I believe they had practice nights on those ones as well because the Western 100 final year was down in Aberdeen in 2007. They had a practice night with the pure stocks. They just ran their regular like Central pure stock class. They ran that as a practice night before the main event started later in the week. So yeah, so they did that as that. They did like feeds for the pure stocks. And I think they did features the next night for the pure stocks. I think as of night one for the Western. But yes, practice nights have been a thing for a while with 100s.
Okay, I was just curious about that. It's not something I would really think about occurring for bigger events.
Well, I think a lot of the racers try to utilize that to get their cars through pre-tech, so they don't have to. There's not such a big rush on Wednesday when they come in.
Yeah. Yep.
So, yeah. So that's what's upcoming for racing this week. We'll get to our white flag segment. Thank you once again to Isaac Hot Sauce Sandro for supporting us. If you see Isaac the rest of the season, or if you just see him in the grandstands because he's kind of been spectating a little more recently, be sure to say hi. One of the nicest people to talk to. Check out the Sandro Snack Shack when you see him at the racetrack. I want to thank Isaac so much for supporting us on the podcast for this season. For wins of the week, Jessup, before you fall asleep, go ahead and list your wins of the week.
I will go with Donovan Weist for picking up a pair of very hard-fought legend wins over at the Tri-County Speedway. Unfortunate circumstances for Preston, but Preston picked up a win the following night at the Southwest Speedway, so good for him as well. But Donovan earns my one of my wins of the week. Let's see, who else do we got out there? I got anyone who doubled up there. Let's just take that off the board and make you guys start thinking. Everyone who doubled up this weekend, that's awesome. Good job. Okay, that's maybe too bold. How about we go with Sparbury for winning the Super Stocks over at the River City Speedway. So first race back for them up there for the John Seitz Memorial. That's a pretty cool win, and he'll be my second win of the week. And I will give it to a point stalker who's had kind of a tough run here. I'm going to give my third one to Tucker Peterson out of the just realm of just being persistent and staying after it, because he's been having some hard luck lately, and I definitely can commend him going up to the Lake of the Woods Speedway to pick up a nice little win there on Sunday as well. Most people would just call it a weekend, but when you start trying to stock some points at the end of the season, sometimes you got to put the extra miles and the extra effort into it, and that definitely paid off for him. So those are my 3 wins of the week.
Excellent.
Along with all the people who doubled up.
Yeah, what a bogus win of the week.
Wow.
Oh, wait. I do have one because I don't think it'll get brought up. So my 4th win of the week goes to Tim Estenson for his big $10,000 win down at Shelby County. Suck it, Mason. That's my 4th win of the week. I'm going 4 for 4. Congratulations, Tim. That's a heck of a win, and you definitely deserve a win of the week as well.
Wow. Don't we have rules for this, Mason?
Yeah, but you know what? If you're not going to let me take everybody who doubled up as my first one, I think I get that last one.
You're going to the back for that. Read the agenda. Becca, who are your wins of the week?
No, I don't think so, Mason. There's been plenty of times where people have said multiple ones over. So I'm going to go look in the rule book.
I'm gonna cross off Chris Michelson. I was gonna mention him because he took a hiatus from racing and came back and not only won one night of the Sauerkraut 500, but he won 2 nights, but I'll cross him off my list. I'm gonna go with the legend drivers and all of the drivers and pit crews that actually hopped in track prep equipment and made sure that Tri-County Speedway in Wichita, North Dakota could race their second night of the Sauerkraut 500. It had rained overnight and into the morning. Cooler temperatures didn't allow the track to absorb that moisture, so kind of just sat there. And a lot of the track prep crew in Wishick, they had ideas on how to handle it. And the drivers kind of were like, you know what? We want to race. We're going to make sure we're going to race. Let's make sure that things actually happen. So they actually hopped in their track prep equipment and they produced a fantastic racetrack. So hats off to some of the drivers. I know Austin Weiss was one of them. I saw Kevin Martin in a water truck. Those were just some of the people I saw personally actually out on the track, prepping, packing the track, prepping the track before the races started that night. So hats off to all of those individuals who helped make racing possible night 2 down at the Tri-County Speedway. I just want to give a quick shout out to all of the drivers who from our local region that went down to Supernationals and represented North Dakota on the national stage. Primarily Colin Hibden, Travis Hagan, Brady Biella, and Alex Thompson, who made their the big dance, and made the feature on their respective nights. Colin Hibden was the best of those finishers. He finished 4th, and that was his second top 5 finish in back-to-back years for him. Travis made the feature for the first time. I believe Brady did as well. So hats off, and Alex did too. So hats off to all of those drivers. And then I think I want to go with my third one of the week. I want to go with Marlon Seidler. He just celebrated a birthday this past weekend. He went over to the Southwest Speedway to take in their invitational this past weekend, and he picked up the victory on night 2. He just turned 71 years old and is still winning races, and in a brand new car, no less. So I'm sure that took some time to feel that out. And so congratulations to those drivers. Those are my wins of the week.
Okay, so I'm going to go with multiple drivers as well.
You can
But
do up to 5.
Here, oh yeah, right. I'm gonna do my 3 that I have in mind. So first of all, I have to go with the Silver Dollar Nationals winner, one of the teenagers out there in the sprint car ranks, Corey Day. Congratulations to Corey picking up his first World of Outlaw sprint car feature win at a big stage. So Corey, you were knocking on the door for quite a bit, and at a young age, you picked up that first win. Congratulations! I think you got a lot of good opportunities of coming in your career, and a lot more wins coming down the pipeline as well. So congratulations to Corey winning that feature event this past weekend. The next win of the week, I have to give it over to one of our lady drivers at the basically Wissota 100 at Bemidji for the Stock, the Hornets, and the Mod 4s. Jenna Hagerman ended up winning that feature event, becoming one of the first females ever to win a Wissota 100 title. So congratulations to her in the Wissota Hornets. And also another female driver finished second. That was Ellen Lang, finished second during that event. And good job to them for picking up the 1-2 finish there over in the Hornets division at the 100 over in Bemidji. And they had a very nice field of cars. So they had 17 Hornet drivers. They had 26 stock drivers, and they had 30 Wissota Mod 4 drivers. So very successful event for those classes, as those car counts, Mason and you'll attest this too, are way higher than what they had over at the Wissota 100 even the past couple of years. So that's good to see.
Yep.
And my final win of the week. Who do I give it over to? No, it's not going to be Jessup. Let's go over to the Northern Nationals over in Superior. Unfortunately, they rained out on Saturday night. They had rain come through. Mason was close to the area. and it canceled the show on Saturday. So unfortunately, the Northern Nationals had to cancel on Saturday night. But in the modified division, he picked up the win over at the Silver 1000 last week, Thursday over at Proctor, and he followed up with a win in the modifieds over on Friday night in Superior. Daryl Nelson, he has been on a tear when it comes to season end specials for basically your fall invitational, and he picked up the win. Congratulations to Daryl. I know his wife is still recovering from that accident that happened earlier in the year, but it's good to see that Daryl's doing well, still picking up wins, and his wife is continuing her road to recovery, which is awesome to see as well. So congratulations to Daryl, the future winner over there from Northern Nationals.
Awesome. Good set of wins there. I have to really think through my wins of the week now, considering half of them got taken with one broad win, I guess.
Hold on. Do you want some
And
help?
look at this, Mason. I even had backup wins of the week ready to go in certain
I have
areas.
backup wins of the week.
I have backup wins too, thankfully. But
Hold on. Why can't I read the whole? Oh, someone changed this again.
Because you've been restricted access.
Wow.
wow, how did that work?
So you've
John
changed it
knows
after
things.
you changed it.
You can still see
after-
it.
Nope, you changed the wording after the thing has taken place. I'm sorry, Mason. That is abuse of power, and that could get
I
you in
think
hot
that
water
was
with certain
John's doing.
shows.
I think John was doing things when you were chatting.
Oh, I have no idea even how to even do any of that stuff. So
Probably why he doesn't read the agenda.
See?
probably true. I
Anyways.
don't even know where the agenda is located at.
Oh,
so
stop. I made
so-
one question one time and you guys have not dropped it.
So we are admitting that John does not read the agenda. Good. So my caution does come off the board.
No, it doesn't. Anyways, I'll quickly rattle off my wins of the week. My first win of the week goes to Mike Hagan. Picked up the $2,465 payday over at the Richard Jordan Memorial at Southwest Speedway. Congratulations to Mike. I believe he went down to Boone, didn't he?
I don't know if he raced in Boone.
He might have gone and watched, but then
Okay, I
came
saw
back.
he was going down. I didn't know if he raced though.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember seeing his car ever hitting the track down at Boone, so I don't think he ever raced in Boone. I know
I
he was
did
on the
not-
pre-entry list at one point.
Now, does that go against their pre-entry count?
No,
the
Ryan
Boone
Clark
count?
Ryan Clark actually keeps track of actual cars on the track. And
And
so when
I
he
think it
came
was
out with
1,014 is the total number of cars that actually hit the track this year for Boone.
exactly.
Yeah.
And Ryan
so-
does a really good job with that. So he's got the
Yeah.
numbers. He's right down to the wire on that as well on where everything is. And you know what, guys? You know, Ryan and I were both, kind of balding. So, we're kind of like the same person when it comes to certain areas.
Am I your Jerry Vansickle?
Yes. Yep.
Mm.
Because
I'm
by
not going to
contrary to
comment on this. I'm going to get in trouble.
Well, anyways, my first win goes to Mike Hagan for getting the big payday over at the Richard Jordan Memorial. My second win of the week, it was going to be a set of racers, but John took one of them out of there. So I'll give a shout out to the other two winners of the AFCO MPH Invitational, which was Dustin Puff in the 16 machine, the Pure Stocks, which I believe that is an old Corey Jorgensen car.
you're correct.
So definitely a fast machine because he originally races the 21X. And so big win for him. And also Tommy Pagonis for getting the Mod 4s. So shout out to those drivers on getting the wins up in Bemidji. And my third win goes to Ryan Johnson in the 25. It was a set of winners, Jessup. Like you took all
John,
the
is that
people
four?
doubled.
Is
I
that
don't
four,
know. It
John?
might be.
Well, if we're going to be a strickler here,
The high side tickler?
The high side tickler. Anyways, my third win of the week goes to Ryan Johnson. He drives the 25 Minnesota Modified out of Carlstead. The reason he's getting a win is because he put a great effort on, I believe it was Friday night. He's still pretty young in that class, racing the street stocks for several years. And he had a really good run at Greenbush the previous week, battling with Ward Emmy for the win, and just was struggling at River Cities on Friday. And I was walking around the pits, and he was frustrated. He's like, telling me I'm so sick of riding in last. And it's like, hey, it's like you got only one way to go in the B main. See if you can get up to a transfer and make it through. And he survived some carnage, managed to get one of the last transfer spots, and got into the feature event. And I was one of the first people over his trailer to be like, see, it's what hard work gets you. I was so happy for Ryan that he was able to kind of persevere from being down in the dumps, and then 20 minutes later, he's getting ready for the A main. So big went out to Ryan Johnson, because I thought that was really cool to see. Just kind of the ebbs and flows of being a racer in our communities. So with that, with a hot mess of a finish this is, that'll do it for episode number 28 of season 2. Be sure as always to like, share, and comment on our videos on Facebook and YouTube, and be sure to subscribe on our podcasting platforms, Google, Spotify, and Apple. Thank you to our sponsors, Hitch Harness and Isaac Hot Sauce Sandro. Still a few races to take in this weekend, so we hope to see you all out there back in the track.